Hello, everyone, and welcome all to another episode of Programming in Python, where today we will be talking about methods or definitions in Python. So, methods are basically an organized way or organized structure to have a specific set of instructions and keep them in a collection. So, you know how in lists we have a list of strings or a list of integers or a list of doubles, right? Well, think of a method as a container that has a set of instructions kind of similar to like a list, but instead of having those strings and integers, they're statements, right? So here's a real world example like I gave you. Let's say you want to wash a car, right? So when you wash a car, you get soap, right? And you get, oops, sorry about that. You get soap and then you get water, right? Then you get a bucket, and then once you get that bucket, that's when you mix soap and water, right? Just like that. And then once you mix the soap and the water, you twirl it around in the bucket, and then once that's done, and you have that solution, then you can get a sponge, right? And then from that sponge, you can like put it in the water, in the mixture actually of soap and water, right? And then once you put in the mixture, you then put like on car, scrub on car, wax on, wax off, Mr. Miyagi kind of thing, right? So each one of these are a set of instructions, right? So you could think of this as a method, as of saying, hey, I want a list of instructions and I want to do it in this manner. In this case, I want to set up my solution of soap and water, and I want this to have only things that are talking about mixing water and soap. And then the other method will be of pure, like actually washing the car, like getting the sponge, right? So think of methods just like that. Think of them as a collection of statements that you can do whatever you want with, right? So the syntax for it in Python is really simple. It's just def for definition, space, and then whatever you wanted to call. Let's call this. You know what? Let's stick with this washing car idea because I think this would be a great example to say. So let's say wash car, right? Because that's what we're going to be doing, right? And then we're going to do parentheses. It's very important that you put parentheses after this wash car because then you're telling the compiler in Python, hey, look, I want this to be a method and I want it to contain no arguments. More on that later. And then you put the colon, just like how you do in if else statements or for loops or while loops, right? Press enter. Make sure you have that indent, and then we can just do whatever we want. We could print starting to wash car, right? And it's important to note that you have to indent whatever code you want into the definition, because if you leave it like this, maybe it'll give me the error here. There you go. It says invalid syntax, right? Because it's expecting a indent over here. So once we indent it, then it's not going to complain anymore. Once we save it, it's not going to complain because, hey, we've indented it. We made sure that, look, this print statement, I want it to be in this definition. I want it to be in this method, right? And that goes the same with this. I could put was car. I just realized I put starting to was car. Starting to wash car. Starting to scrub. I'm pretty sure there's another word that I'm not thinking of. Starting to scrub car, right? And then lastly, the last thing you do is starting to, I don't know, dry car, right? So yeah, we save it. Oh yes, one thing I forgot to mention, you can't just print it out. You can't just run the file and expect the definition to run. Let's actually try that right now, see what it'll give us. Nothing. Why didn't it give us anything? Well, the thing about methods is that you need to create an instance where you call that method. And what I mean by that is I mean that you need to reference that method. You need to say wash car parentheses. All this does is saying, you know what, we can even debug this. Watch. Actually, let's debug from the first line to see what's going to happen here. Remember, F5 and then enter. All right, we're stopped in the code. And it's going to read this definition. It's going to read this method. It's going to skip it. It knows the things that are in there, but it's just going to skip it for now because we don't have anything to do there. It's just going to read that method. So now we see that we've referenced wash car. Now what wash car does, actually let me check what these special, yeah, these are Python's things. Okay, so here's the thing about calling methods. Once the code sees that you've referenced a method, that's when you realize like, oh, okay, the compiler starts to see, okay, so I remember this method, I remember reading it. We can see the function variables here, right? I remember reading this method. What do you want me to do with it? Well, let's go to the method, right? Once you call that method, that's when we can go to the actual method itself and do something. And what do you want me to do in this method? Oh, you want me to print a statement starting to wash car? Boom, I got you. Starting to wash car. You want me to scrub car now? All right, I got you. Here we go. Starting to scrub the car, right? And then the last print statement would be starting to dry the car, and then that's what you do. And then that would be the end of the statement, right? That's how you end it. And basically, you can do these with X amount of methods. You can have so many methods, but as long as you don't call them, they're not gonna run. You got to make sure that you call these methods. Now, that's one example to think of, right? The thing is, washing the car is way more steps like this, right? Like we said earlier, you have to mix the bucket. You need to get the sponge and start scrubbing on the car, and then lastly, rinse it with a hose, and then lastly, dry it off with a cloth, right? It's not just one definition, one method. So what we could do, we can make it more organized, and this is more of a developer way of thinking, of like making your code more efficient, instead of like writing it all in one method. For example, let's just continue with what I'm trying to say here. So let's get rid of this method and let's do from scratch, right? We're gonna mix make water soap mixture. That's a very long method name, but served its purpose. So I don't know. We could do print statements. We're not gonna really talk about logic here a lot, like like putting logic in the methods. I just want you guys to understand how methods are used. So here we're gonna print get bucket, right? Get materials, right? Basically, get water, uh, get the soap, get the car wash soap, because I know they have a specific type of soap, right? And then mix all together in the bucket, right? That's how you make that water soap solution. Well, now we can make another method that says, all right, now what I want you to do, let's name it, I want you to actually wash car. This is going to be the actual action of it, right? So we're going to be doing put sponge in soap water mixture, right? Scrub car with sponge, right? Rotate in circular motion, that kind of thing. We're washing the car, and then once that's done, then rinse with water hose, right? So that's how you would wash the car. And then lastly, the last definition we want, the last method would be drying the car. So dry car. Oops, put a semicolon instead of a colon. Then we can print get cloth. Scrub car with cloth. And rid of any water that stays on said car, right? So that's how you would dry the car, right? So now we have all these three different methods, and they do specific things. They have a specific set of instructions that do these things, right? We have the make water soap mixture method, that all it does is just gets the bucket, gets the water, gets the soap, and then it mixes them all together, how it should be, right? Then next, we can say that now we want to wash the car. We put the sponge in the soap water mixture, then scrub car with sponge, and then rotate in circular motion, and then rinse. And then we repeat this action, right? Till for like the four sides. And then you dry the car. You go into the car, you get I mean, sorry, you get the cloth, you scrub car with the cloth, right? And then you're rid of all the water there. So think of it as a to-do list. All these methods that I've made, they're separate, but they have a purpose. The purpose is to create the whole thing, which is to completely the total goal, right? Which is to wash the car. But each method has a specific instruction to do it. But combining them together, we can ultimately finish the job that we want to do, which is to wash that car. So you can think of it as a to-do list if you think that's a better way of representing it. Um, so yeah, now we can reference each method, right? Like so, just like that. So if we run it, we can see that, whoa, we get that whole set of instructions, right? And that's from get bucket, mix all together in the bucket. That's the last thing in that method. Then we go into this definition, which is scrub car with sponge, rotate, rinse with water hose, right? And then lastly, to dry the car. So we can, if you want, let's do it real quick. Let's debug it to see what it really does. It's going to be similar like it did last time. It's going to read all three methods. Cool. Now it's going to go to make water soap mixture, right? And then it's going to go through each one there. And then it's going to go to wash car, since I called it. And then it's going to print everything there. It's going to go to dry car and then print everything out there. And look, it's very simple. Instead of having to do, let me just do this. Instead of having to do this, which is much more tedious in programming and sometimes can lead to a bunch of debugging errors. So what we could have done was this. What we could have done was get all of these print statements. Oops. We could have gotten all these print statements and leave it like that. And yeah, it works. I won't lie, it works, right? But sometimes things like this can get, when you repeat stuff like this, when you're dealing with an actual project in your Python files, you could get bugs, and bugs are not good in code. You could get errors that you won't know what you're coming from, and you won't be able to understand your code because it's so messy, because all you see is print, 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 print. Instead, it's much easier to find mistakes if you organize your code in said way, because you'll be able to understand, like, oh, okay, so this method is specifically for this, right? And this method is specifically for this, which is to wash car. This one's to make soap, water soap mixture, and the other one is to dry the car. And it's so much easier to understand like that, because let's say your code, it gives you an error saying, oh, couldn't find the couldn't find variable name of, or I'm sorry, in this case, let's go with what we're doing, right? We can say couldn't find print statement for dry car, and if we were, or couldn't find statement to get the actual cloth, we couldn't find that print statement, something went wrong. And if we had it all bundled up together like we originally had, then it would take us forever, right? Well, not really forever, but thinking of it in a grand scheme of things, it would take a long time to go through each and every single print statement, right? Whereas if we had methods and we had them organized, we would know that, okay, well, this is definitely not going to have that error because it's a soap water mixture. It's not the dry thing, right? Wash car is definitely not going to have that error because it's to wash that car. Now, the definition of dry car, it probably has that print statement. Maybe I forgot to put print or quotes on it, and that's why I couldn't get that print statement, right? And then I could say, oh, that's an easy fix. Whereas if it had all bundled up together into one, huge code log or print statements, it just would take, it's just a hassle to go through, right? This is so much easier using methods to make your code more organized and efficient. Also, another thing to note is I hope you realize that I did all my method calls after each definition, each method. The reason I did this is because the compiler of Python reads the code from top to bottom. So how I do it is that I let it read the definitions. I let it know that, hey, this is what the method wash car is. This is what the method dry car is. So once I call the method, it'll say, oh, I know exactly where that is. Wash car is the second method that you called or that you wrote. So let me go to this method. Instead of putting wash car before the actual definition, it would eventually get to it, but it would be kind of sluggish because depending on where the wash car was, like let's say if it was last and that was the first thing that I called up here, it would take forever to go back again, right? So it's just to keep efficient code, organized code in your project. One thing I want to talk to you about as well is you can call methods in other methods. What did I mean by that? Really simple. Instead of just calling all three methods here, I could just call make water soap mixture if I want. And then I can print these out by putting the method calls inside methods. So it's like methodception. Think of it like that. I can call wash car here, right? And then wash car I could finally call dry car. And if we print this out, if we run it, we see that it's the exact same thing. Let's see what's happening. Let's debug it real quick. Let me debug it, line 21, because we already know what happens here. So let's debug it real quick. What's going on? Okay, so we're at the make water soap mixture. Okay, cool. So we're going through each print statement. Yeah, same thing. Wait a minute, we're calling a wash car reference. Okay, so we're gonna go to this definition, right? Boom, immediately goes there. And we go to print statements. Okay, so, and then we go to dry car. Okay, that's another method. Let's go to that method and let's do whatever they want there. And just like that, you finished it, right? That's how simple it is to go through each method. The reason why it goes back is because they reference each other in each method. And so it has to go back and say, oh yeah, we ended this method, by the way. And this is the basic idea of recursion. Keep in mind. Recursion might sound like a big word, but all it means is just self-referencing other methods, just like we did here, right? We put a method inside of a method, right? And then we just call that method, right? That's basically what recursion is. That's the basic idea of it. But we can even go one step further than this. We can make a method that is the central idea of it all, which is to wash the car, right? Completely, like wash the car, then dry, or make the water soap mixture, wash the car, and then dry it. And all we have to do is just call the methods, just like we did originally. Make water soap mixture. Make sure you always add the parentheses, right? Wash car and dry car. And then all we have to do now is just call wash the car. And then once we do that, we don't have to call any more methods because wash the car has all the other methods that we need. So let's debug, see what's going on here. F11. Okay, we're going to the wash the car method. Okay, make water soap mixture. All right, let's go there. Let's print it. Let's print it. Oh, actually, let me comment these out and comment these out. My bad. This was gonna print like a ton of times. That's on me. But yeah, the same thing, right? So okay, we're gonna make water soap mixture. We're printing. Okay, it prints all the things. All right, we're done here. We just did this. All right, now we want wash car. All right, we'll do wash car. Okay, wash car is done. We did all the things. Now let's go to dry car. That's all the thing. The print statement is as well, and then we're done here. And just like that, it's that simple and that much organized to create, our wash car method or wash car goal, our project, right? Now, the last thing I want to talk about here is the parentheses. If you recall earlier in this video, I referenced something called arguments. Arguments or parameters are things that go inside the parentheses that you can reference. It's like an input. Remember how we used the input statement here? How we called it a variable, and then we used the input, and then we asked a question to the viewer, right? And then whatever the answer was in the terminal, it would be this variable. Well, the parameters inside a method work similarly like that. It's an input that is being given to the method that we can use in said method. For example, let's say we want to know what kind of car we are washing. So let's make car. Let's make it a Nissan Sentra. So in this definition, wash the car. What we're gonna do, we're gonna call car, right? And what's gonna happen is we're gonna say print f, right? We are capital. We are now going to wash the, and then we can put car here. By the way, this is a good way to format variables, because if I didn't put that f, this is what we would have to do. We would have to put this, and then adding, and then putting car here at the end. But instead of doing all that mess, we could just easily just do this. It's a format. It's what's called in in Python. Basically, anything inside these parentheses, I'm sorry, these curly braces, we can put like variables or functions and stuff like that. Right. So the reason it's giving me an error here is because we're expecting an input car, but we haven't put anything in car here. So it's telling me, see, there you go. No value for argument car in function call. There's nothing in this call that will be car. So this is an error. This is not going to work. So all we have to do is just put car here, right? Just like that. And then we shouldn't have any problems. Let's clear it. And then let's debug, right? And now we have watch the car with an argument of car. And we see that car is the Nissan Sentra, right? So let's go. And it's going to print the statement. We are now going to watch the Nissan Sentra. And then you could do this with any other method as well, right? We could put dry car, we could put an argument there of cloth, right? What kind of cloth we want. Or the wash car, we could put what kind of sponge we want. And same thing here, what kind of water or soap, right? You could probably wash cars with distilled water. Hey man, no judging. But yeah, that's the idea of these methods. You could also think of methods as booleans. Now, booleans, if you remember, if you recall, they're true and falses. They only have two results. We can make a definition like that. We can say, we can make another method where we can say, is clean. Is clean. Is the car clean, right? And we're gonna be oh wow, my bad. I don't know what I just did. Let's delete that. We can have this method say return true or false, right? If let's say if wash if you could say this after the whole thing, we can call this method is clean, all right? And then we can put a print statement here, or input statement. I mean, result, and we could do this. We could say input. Are you satisfied with the cleaning? And then you can say true or false, right? So if result equals to the result dot lower. Let's make it lower. Make sure just in case they put all caps to true to or yes, then return true. If not, else return false. I forgot the colon here. Right? And then we can make is clean into a variable, just like this, something. We'll just call it something. Something equals is clean, because remember, it's going to return something, so it's going to return true, right? and then let's just print something, just like that. Let's see, let's run it. Let's actually debug here. F5, enter. All right, so we're here, something. So now it's going to go to is clean, right? So result, input, are you satisfied with the cleaning? Let's say yes, all caps, and it's going to turn it to lower. So we're going to see result is yes, but it's going to be lower now, right? It's going to return true because lowercase yes is yes, and since we can see that something will now be returned as true. So when we print it, it's going to return true. It's going to print true. Now this time let's answer no, we are not satisfied or something else, right? No. Then else, because it's not true, right? Return false, and then we're gonna print false, just like that. Really simple. And you can't. There's no reason to return just true or false only. You can even return something else. You can even return a print statement if you want. Um, I believe you can. Actually, maybe you can return a string. Maybe work. But you could return a string or a variable or something, right? We could return result if we wanted to. Let's see if this works. Let's debug, right? So let's say yes. And returns maybe work. And yeah, it seems like something worked. So yeah, maybe work. We can pass the string by. Now let's do the last thing. Debug again. So let's say no. Else return result, which will be no. Just like that. Very simple. So I hope you guys understood. This gave you a more idea of how methods are used, and it's a way for you to organize your structured code. It's very good practice, and it's going to help you in the long run. And then next week we'll be talking about classes, and then I'll teach you guys an even more organized way of doing this. This is great practice to become a better developer with organized code that is easy and efficient to read. But that is all for me today, and I'll see you guys in the next episode where we'll be talking about classes. But have a good day, guys.